Hello, everyone. So I focus very much in on the public sector. I do a lot of public sector change, mainly in the NHS and central government, but also local government. I tend to do quite a lot of organisational development, design, and something I'm starting to call organisational digitisation, where technology is starting to change how people learn, how people work, and how people even find their jobs.
What are the real skills challenges that you're seeing with them at the moment?
Well, very, very interesting question, Dave. And sorry, Andy, I was just thinking about what Dave was saying about the skills of tomorrow not being the skills of today. A friend of mine in government is actually looking at 20, 30 years ahead, trying to work out what the skills of tomorrow are going to be, what the jobs of tomorrow are going to be, so they can feed that back into the education system. So, you know, it's a massive project and a very difficult one to do as well. But I think back in the here and now, you know, given everything that happened yesterday, you know, the public sector is in a very, very strange place at the moment. You know, they were, prior to the Prime Minister resigning last night, you know, they were already having to look back at all their budgets, see where they could get efficiencies, see which projects and programmes were going to go forward, and where they had the skills to do those. And for a long time, we knew that it's a massive skills shortage, both in central government and in the NHS and social care, where I work quite a lot, and it's right across the board. You know, I think there was a report out today saying the NHS alone needs the people the size of the population of Newcastle to join this year. What I see as well in my clients is, for those that are left trying to deal with all the work, of course, their workloads are going sky high. And particularly in the NHS, there's a lot of talk around lack of time to learn because they're so busy covering shifts.
And talk about those kind of soft skills in connection with the clients you're working with. How important are those soft skills for you and your clients?
Well, I think starting with my NHS and care clients, of course, you know, it is the care service. You know, it's endemic in what they do, that they know how to deal with people, how to interact with people, how to deal with very, very challenging, literally life or death situations. But as we've seen, sadly, all over the media, you know, bullying scandals and lack of leadership happens quite frequently. And I think there's something there in terms of how are we approaching, how we develop people for the senior roles. You know, are we really supporting them, providing the coaches and mentoring, helping them to understand how it is they lead and what behaviours might be more acceptable and better, higher impact than those that maybe they defaulted to in the past. It's worth investing in as much as those hard functional skills where, you know, NHS job ads, like Dave was saying, the experience, the qualifications, that's almost the must have. You don't get through the system unless, of course, you've got that technical qualification. But we need that softer qualification to be given as much importance as that, I think.
So we've talked about the use of psychometrics. I know that you've used it both for developing individuals as well as the teams within your organisations. What has been the personal experience you've had using those?
Well, I guess like many on the call, you know, I've tried out quite a few of them. The first time I came across them was in a emerging leaders thing that I did back in the day, back in the 90s, I think, where we were assessed using Myers-Briggs and Belbin, and that helped us to understand our style of leadership. And then personally doing an MBA in the early 2000s, we had an afternoon every Wednesday where they gave us a different psychometric to try out. And at the end of the course, we were sort of in bits all over the floor, working out how to put ourselves all back together again. But it was really, really good. And it showed you which psychometrics were good for what type of development. I've used a mix of psychometrics when, for instance, a few years ago, bits of the NHS were reorganising and we were merging teams from about 7 different regions. And I used psychometrics there to help the team understand and get to know each other quickly, because they had to build, bond and deliver very quickly indeed, because it's obviously so fast paced in the NHS, and they're a key part of what I do in the consulting world. I came across Predictive Index when I was at Virgin. I was their VP for OD for a little while, and Virgin used Predictive Index to both recruit, profiling the job that they want to recruit to, and asking everybody that applies to do the predictive index
Yeah.
assessment, and then they match and wheedle down to a shortlist. And then within the organisation, we used it to help develop people, build teams. It became a very common language. So I became a fan of it. Who else is using it? Because I hadn't seen it at all in the UK prior to that. I was quite amazed because it was so good. And you can see some of the brands that are using it. I honed in on IKEA and Hennies down there, but also this one over here, Manchester United are using it.
Oh,
So
wow.
quite a lot of British football clubs are using Predictive Index, which is quite an eye-opener. And I asked Humanostics back in Denmark, what was that all about then? And they said, well, it's actually the Manchester United Football Academy, but it's players as well as admin staff. So just to reassure any United fans, they don't use this to pick the team, but what it is used for onboarding and choosing how to coach the players and the staff.